Are Democrats racist? Do they support racists?
Today, our country has lost a true American original, my friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility, and I will remember him for many things.
Does she remember Robert Byrd as a grand wizard in the KKK?
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision.
Margaret Sanger was a racist who promoted eugenics as a means of achieving the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization. However, in all fairness to Hillary,
you know, I admire Thomas Jefferson. I admire his words and his leadership, and I deplore his unrepentant slaveholding. I admire Margaret Sanger being a pioneer in trying to empower women to have some control over their bodies, and I deplore statements that you have referenced. That is the way we often are when we look at flawed human beings. There are things that we admire and things we deplore.
that's an interesting argument considering she implied Donald Trump was racist because he received support from white nationalists, which isn't something he can choose. And she grouped nearly half of all Trump supporters into what she called a basket of deplorables for no other reason than they supported Donald Trump. Let's continue. Do Democrats use jokes about race?
Sorry, Hillary. I was running on CP time.
That's not, I don't like jokes like that, Bill. That's not funny.
Cautious politician time.
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
The Somalis have made my city of Wilmington, Delaware, on a smaller scale. It's a large, very identifiable Somali community. I might add, if you ever come to the train station with me, you'll notice that I have great relationships with them because there's an awful lot of driving cabs.
Do they appear to think of other races as inferior?
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Yeah. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. They went out literally into the hood, and they turned out 54, and they had to be all women, the vast majority of women of color, no one with more than a high school degree, ages 24 to 54, and almost a third of them only had a GED. All of a sudden seeing a hell of a lot clearer. I seen, geez, the reason I was able to stay sequestered in my home is because some black woman was able to stack the grocery shelf.
Yes, I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Liu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety. He purposely presented an extracted clip.
I hope you pursue that clip in its entirety. It was awesome. Do they mock or imitate other races?
Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card, okay? Or that ad on TV. What is it, Nancy? This is Nancy. Can I talk to a supervisor, right?
What did Malcolm X think of Democrats?
Game of power politics here in America. The Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal. And white conservatives from both parties do likewise.
Do Democrats use stereotypes and culture to appeal to voters? Proclaiming to like the foods they think you like.
No more questions? They said no, she has to go.
What's something that you always carry with you?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Are you getting information right now? Hot sauce. Hot sauce in my bag, Swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people again.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
Appealing to you through the music and artists they think you listen to most.
In the words of James Cleveland, I don't feel no ways tired. We've come too far from where we started.
8 years ago, I was so inspired to know that my nephew, a young black child, could grow up knowing his dreams could be realized by witnessing a black president in office.
And this other guy, I don't have any ill will towards him, but his conversation is divisive, and that's not an evolved soul to me, so he cannot be my president. He cannot be our president.
I just have one thing to say. Hang on here.
All right. There you go. Dance a little bit, Joe. Come on. I'll tell you, my man.
Is it working?
Putting on a nice show and dancing how they think you dance.
Is it working?
Talking differently or using racially coded language.
Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Is it working?
Dressing differently in an effort to show solidarity.
Online today, like most of you, and what did I see? A bunch of Democrat politicians kneeling down, of which I have nothing to say about that because I am not an American. However, they were all having around their necks this colorful fabric, which I'm sure they put around their necks as some kind of mark or show of unity or solidarity with black people. So in other words, they are putting forward the canteen material or this colorful fabric they had around their necks as some kind of placating sign or symbol to show that they are not racist. And
by the way, the kente cloth was worn by the Ashanti tribe, a major exporter of slaves in the 1800s. To meet the growing demand, they went to war with their neighbors. This enabled them to expand their empire and capture prisoners to sell into slavery. Do Democrats question your loyalty to your race or call you Uncle Tom for thinking for yourself?
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
So what we say on the Democratic side is we cannot waste this historic moment, this singular opportunity. Let's not do something that is a token, half-hearted approach.
The senator from Illinois referred to this process, this bill, this opportunity to restore hope and confidence and trust from the American people, from African Americans, from communities of color, to call this a token process. Hurts my soul for my country, for our people.
Maybe if they get you reparations. Some bills have been introduced to suggest paying reparations to the descendants of slaves, while others suggest putting money back into communities.
Unlike victims of the Holocaust and Japanese internment camps, there are not a lot of paper trails for the descendants of slavery. The census didn't count Black Americans until 1870.
Don't worry, I'm sure the money will go to improving communities as it has in the past.
Hillary Clinton is a bigot who sees people of color only as votes, not as human beings worthy of a better future. She's going to do nothing for African Americans. She's going to do nothing for the Hispanics.
You called last night Hillary Clinton a bigot. Previously, you called her policies bigoted. You directly called her a bigot.
Well, she is a bigot because you look at what's happening to the inner cities. You look at what's happening to African Americans and Hispanics in this country, where she talks all the time. She's talking, look at the vets, where she said the vets are being treated essentially just fine, that it's over-exaggerated what's happening to the vets not so long ago.
But how is she bigoted? Bigoted is,
because
is having hatred toward a particular
she's selling
group.
them down the tubes, because she's not doing anything for those communities. She talks a good game,
So
but she
you're saying
doesn't do anything.
she has hatred
Her
or
policies are
dislike of black
bigoted.
people?
Her policies are bigoted because she knows they're not going to work.
Reparations is a big idea on the left. What did you learn from going to all those candidates with the same question?
I think what I learned is how uncomfortable they are when actually dealing with the question in real life. And what I learned is also, look, for me, I am not personally in favor of reparations. I think that it is a scam that they are trying to sell to Black America for votes. And what I really learned is that they're not serious about this. This is pandering. And when you call them out on the pandering, you know, it makes it a lot.
Is it working?
Refusing to repeat this quote, I'll just leave this here for a moment. It was reportedly said by U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson aboard Air Force One while speaking to 2 governors.
The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives.
Is it working?
Well, is it working?